right, welcome into the Five Guys here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. I got Alex Donno. You can follow him at Alex Donno. We got two great sponsors of this episode. There's action items on both. Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. This is our daily fantasy partner. Their deal, you put down $5, they give you 50. Pretty simple. No questions asked, no catch, no nothing. Some of the props on the board tonight to take a look at: Tua, 268.5 passing yards. Jalen Waddle, 67.5 passing yards. Josh Allen, 37.5 rushing yards. I'd play all those over, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Check them out. Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. This, again, is legal in the state of Florida. PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5. Also, Better Edge. We got a contest up there right now. So download the Better Edge app or go to betteredge.com. Use the code 5RSN. That's the number 5RSN. Get $20 to play. You can see there the Dolphins now a 1.5-point favorite against the Bills. That is toggle. But the difference between Better Edge and all over the place, you can see down there if you're looking, 124 orders. That means there are other lines on there that you can play. So you can find the line that you want. This is one of the big differences between Better Edge and the others. The other is that you don't pay a VIG. We also got a contest on there. Today's the day. Sign up for Better Edge. Again, use the code, and you can see some of the props there. There to a 263.5. You can get any at minus 113. James Cook, who I like over carries tonight, by the way. I like him over 14.5 carries. That's on Prize Picks. But check out the Better Edge product. Again, no VIG, legal in the state of Florida, and you can find the line that you want. Totally different experience. BetterEdge.com. Use the code there, 5RSN, Prize Picks. Use the code 5. All right, let's start here from the jump. I'm looking at the Dolphins' upcoming schedule, Alex, and it feels to me like if they can just get through this one, that things start to open up. I mean, they've got a Seattle team that, yes, it's on the road. They're beatable. Tennessee is a revenge game for Miami after what happened last year. Then you get New England. Then you get Indy. I feel like that feels like 3-1 to me. And so if you could just get this, and this is the big one, you've lost 10 of 11 in the regular season to them. You've lost 11 of 12 overall, including the playoffs. I mean, this is it. Like, this is what you've been building towards the entire offseason. I know getting a win against Jacksonville is nice, but are you physical enough? Can you handle Josh Allen? Are you going to allow them to still be the kings of the division? Either they weren't even that good last year, and you couldn't get the division title over them, which is why you had to go on the road to Kansas City. So how do you feel going into tonight's game?
I feel very good. The only thing that I don't feel great about is knowing that Raheem Mostert is not going to play, and it seems a little iffy with Devon Achane. I know that there's some optimistic going into tonight that he's going to go through warm-ups with either the hope or the intention to play, and some of the national reporters are saying they feel pretty good about Achane going tonight, which obviously without Mostert would give the Dolphins a really big boost, because Achane, as we saw last week, is not only a weapon on the ground. He actually didn't do that much on the ground last week, but through the air, he was, he led the team in receptions last week with seven touches through the air. So that would be a really important one to have. But, on the flip side, Ethan, I think there are a lot of things besides the questionable health of your running back room that do work in the Dolphins' favor tonight. These short weeks for Thursday night games are a huge boon to the home team, right? I mean, everyone hates these short weeks from Sunday to Thursday, but at least the Dolphins don't have to travel. The Bills do have to travel. I think this is probably, on paper, the worst the Bills defense has been, since they first reached the top of that mountaintop. And yeah, you do have certain parts of history working against you tonight if you're the Miami Dolphins. You mentioned how just dreadful Miami's record has been against Buffalo in recent years. And the Bills are the only team in the division that Tua Tagovailoa hasn't owned. Like, this guy never loses to the Patriots, hasn't lost to them, hasn't lost to the Jets. But, the Bills, he's only beaten the Bills once, and it was that game in the South Florida Heat 2 years ago. And I know people will, of course, try to downplay the Heat because it's a night game tonight. So you're not going to have the visiting team's bench, like literally in the sun, which is, the case for day games. That was, we saw that with Jacksonville last week. You've seen it with Buffalo before, but it still is very humid, even in the evening. So, obviously Miami probably a little bit better equipped for that than Buffalo. But the big thing for me is, Ethan, I do think the Dolphins I believe they have the better roster. They have the shorter week working to their advantage. They have to play better than they did for most of that Jacksonville game, though. because if because the Jaguars really, they let them off the hook last week in many ways. So I believe the Dolphins have to play better tonight than they did on Sunday. But I think this is one where Tua, Waddle are going to put up big numbers. I do think that defense can make Josh Allen uncomfortable. And I think the Dolphins are going to get probably a close dub. I think it's going to be, we were looking at the point spread down 1.5 now on your edge. Like I've seen this number shrink because it was Dolphins -3. I guess there's more money coming in on Buffalo because the Bills Mafia sees, we're getting 3 points. They all started on it. They shrunk the line a little bit, but I think the Dolphins are going to get it done by about a field goal tonight.
Yeah, I'm surprised the line is not bigger, to be honest. To me, it's a 3-point line, which is a pick'em game, essentially, when you account for the home team. And what you mentioned, that Thursday night games for road teams are a problem, and Miami should benefit from that. I was looking at the weather. It is going to rain around 5 and cool down somewhat. It's supposed to be in the 83 to 85 range, but it's 70% humidity. So you mentioned the weather is hotter today than it typically is for this day of the year. So, again, you don't get the 1 o'clock game. You don't have the Hard Rock Sun. You don't have the complaints from the Bills and their fans about it, but you still have challenging circumstances tonight for a team that's not accustomed to playing when it's this sticky, essentially, which is what it's going to be tonight, and uncomfortable. And look, Mostert being out, I like Raheem. Hey, David, how are you? I like Raheem. I had a great year last year. I have been one among those projecting that his numbers are going to get cut in half this year at the very least. He ran the ball a lot for an older guy last year. There was going to be a pivot away from him anyway. It does appear that Devon may play because I'm looking at his IG. He was pumping up the game. So I think there's some optimism. Now, there could be a little bit of a rope-a-dope there too, and he may end up getting pulled out. But even so, they have the humidity is thicker than gelato. They have they drafted Jalen Wright. Like they used a high pick on this guy, and so I feel like they're comfortable with him, and Jeff Wilson will get carries. My only concern about it is that McDaniel may run even less. It's not that they won't run effectively. I think it's that he may run less because if he doesn't have his top 2 guys, and we'll see if he has one of the 2, and then it's so reliant on Tua. And the thing I'm concerned about right now with Tua, it's not Tua specifically, and we saw it, he had very little time to throw in the first game. I think he had the second smallest window to throw in terms of all quarterbacks, and yet the offensive line got good grades. So it's kind of a weird deal here. But at the same time, my concern is I still don't see the third target. And that's and if Devon doesn't play, he was the third target in this past game. They're going to need to get better production. Smith can't drop the ball. Smythe can't drop the ball. Okay, Berrios can't drop the ball. I mean, that's what we saw that happen in the first game. And so that's without Beckham there, no Ezukama, no Malik Washington. He's still hurt. Who is going to be that other target for him? Because if they're not going to run the ball effectively, they're going to have to find another guy who can do things. Because otherwise, I say this every game: Hill or Waddle will miss a series or more. They always do. It's a hamstring. It's a concussion. Last game, it was you worried about Waddle with a concussion. I swear, it's like on clockwork. Okay, Alex. Well, we get the report up. Jalen Waddle is questionable to return. Tyreek Hill is questionable to return. Every game, it's one or both of them. They're going to need another target to do something. I want to pivot to the other side with you, though. I gave the numbers on Josh Allen. Averages almost 70 yards a game rushing against the Dolphins in his career. He's 10-2, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He has been their biggest nemesis, not Mahomes, not anybody else. He has been their biggest nemesis since he came in the league. What do you do with him?
The same thing I would say for every quarterback is you pressure him, but you have to also spy him because he can hurt you with his legs, as you mentioned. I mean, I just want you to say that one more time. He averages 70 yards rushing again. I didn't even realize it was that much. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot. If you're not Lamar Jackson, that's a lot to average against one team in rushing. So, I mean, really, I think to me, you have to, obviously you have to smother his receivers and you do have to put pressure on him because, even a mobile quarterback like him is always going to be worse when you're under duress. And I think the Dolphins are going to need to score, Ethan. I mean, I think in this case, because again, the Bills defense, this is not This is not what they were the past few years. Sometimes your best defense is a good offense. And, I don't think you're going to completely shut down Josh Allen. You never have before, but I also think this is going to be a high scoring game. I mean, I think, usually when these teams meet, the combined score goes over 60. It tends to be high scoring between these two teams. So I think you're probably looking at a situation where you maybe hit the over tonight, and this is a relatively high scoring game. I think the Dolphins have more firepower than Buffalo does. And I think the Dolphins probably, at least I knock on wood and keep my fingers crossed when I say this, probably have a slightly better defense at this point. So, maybe the best way, you don't shut Josh Allen down. The Dolphins never have. Maybe the other thing is, Ethan, maybe you hope that he makes some of those mistakes that he seems to make more against other teams than he makes against Miami. Because for as good as Josh Allen is, like how many red zone interceptions have we seen? How many poorly timed fumbles have we seen? I mean, he's so talented. He makes up for some of that stuff, but maybe you get more of those mistakes from him on a short week.
Well, 7 picks in 12 games against Miami. And actually, I think it's 8 and 13 if you include the playoff games. So not a lot. Like, he does not do it a lot against them. Two things to me that I'm watching tonight. One is the Dolphins have been bad in the Mike McDaniel era and before, and I know it's not the same players in these nationally televised games. They've been bad in them. I can't. There's very few of these. We've come out of it and said, "Oh wow, they played to their standards or above." I don't know. There tends to be a nervousness to them, or whatever. And this goes back like the Gase years. Every time they were on national television, I know it's a different team, but I feel like I've watched this story before. They don't play well in national TV games, so that's sticking in my head. Like, when is the last Thursday night they won? I don't. This franchise won. It feels like forever. And somebody maybe in the comments will correct me on that, but I don't remember a bunch of them. I'll say this too. This game is not just big for the standings and ultimately for a potential tiebreaker because you lose a home game and then you got to go to Buffalo later in the year. Psychologically, this was worth like 2 or 3 games. Yeah. If they lose to the Bills again, it's like the same old Dolphins. They're going to hear about this all week and a half until their next game. And it's just going to be this thing. They can't get past this team. It's like they used to hear about with the Patriots until they got some wins that were kind of meaningless against them. But they're going to hear this. They psychologically, this game is worth much more than the Seattle game, than the Tennessee game, any of those games. They have to beat this team. Like, they have to beat this team. Like, they are, as you said, the Bills are depleted defensively. Miami has reshaped its defense, even taken a player away from the Bills. They have to win this game and beat this team, or else they're 1-1 and they're looking like the same old outfit that we've talked about for the past few years. That just, it looks like on paper they look pretty good, but they can't break through. I'll let you close with this, but this is a huge game, and they have a major advantage playing it at home on a short week. That is a major advantage. Have to. No excuses tonight. I don't care if Mostert's hurt. I don't care if Achane's hurt. Got to win the game.
Yeah, good or bad, I'm going to be knee-jerking some crazy opinion after this game, right? If the Dolphins win this game, you're going to start thinking, okay, changing of the guard in the division. We're going to get it this year. We're going to get it. Because, listen, they probably should have been a little bit more convincing in the Jaguars game last week, but they got it done. The next few games don't look nearly as difficult as this one, could be given the recent history with Buffalo. So we're going to learn a lot more about this team tonight than we did last week, and that we're going to learn for the next couple of weeks. It's like the same way, when I talk about my Hurricanes, the victory they had in week 1 against Florida, that was a knee-jerk type of game. If Miami had lost that game, you'd be like, oh, this is going to be a catastrophe. They win that game. People are I don't want to get too ahead of myself on the Hurricanes, but people are talking like the Canes are back because they don't play another like big game for a few more weeks. I view it the same way with the Dolphins. If the Dolphins win, especially convincingly tonight, Miami Dolphin fan base, we're going to be cocky for the next several weeks. We're going to be really cocky, and we're going to feel like this team is going to do something special. And hopefully we'd be right about that. If you lose this game, though, Ethan, I'm always ready on my keyboard to type "same old Dolphins." I typed it during the first half of the Jacksonville game, and I'm gladly I turned out to be wrong about that. But that's it'll be sad or sod, right? Like, same old Dolphins is what we always talk about, and I'm with you on it. And they actually have, look, not that you want to lose a game, but they start to have a little bit of a cushion here as they enter these next few games. If they've got the win under Buffalo and they've got the conference win against Jacksonville under their belt, a loss in Seattle
against a non-conference team is not the end of the world. But if they lose this one, then it is going to be concerning. It's not. Look, these games, they count for double basically, no matter what part of the year they're in.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's the thing. You've got to win this game tonight. I think they will, but I don't feel great about it. Only because, again, these national TV games have been just a disaster. And I keep saying different team, different coach than in some of those games. But man, every time we get hyped up about this team, you know what they do. So we'll see what happens tonight. All right, again, Prize
Yeah.
Picks. Use that code 5FIVE. $5 down. They give you 50. Better Edge. Tons of contests on there right now. 5RSN is the code there. Get your free $20. Have a good one, everybody.